feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Left your feet, don't touch the ground. Life it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Coffee steaming, a smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up. Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Woohoo! Hey, good morning. Let's see here. Yep, we've got sound. We are ready to roll. We've got so much to get to this morning, so I'm just going to jump right in. Yesterday, I opened the show about, we talked about this high-speed police chase. Okay, so there's more details. I didn't have what the suspects had done or what they were accused of doing. I didn't have any of that information. It was just really cool to watch because you had like 4 cops running up this hill and they were in the snow. And then the one cop grabs the guy through the fence and there's a canine who's chasing this guy through the snow. And, you know, I hate the first thing that goes through my head in a high-speed chase is, man, I hope everybody's okay. Because, I mean, high-speed chases could wind up deadly, especially when you're weaving in and out of traffic in obviously slick roads. On obviously slick roads in Charlotte, they got like 11 inches. Charlotte, North Carolina. I think I'm about like an hour and a half, hour 45 from Charlotte. In South Carolina, like I'm just right over the border, and we got like 5 to 7 inches. But anyway, this high-speed chase, it shouldn't have happened. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. You're not going to be shocked about this, but the suspects, or at least one suspect, has been arrested 27 times. So, and if you'll remember, Irina Zarutska, she was the one who was stabbed in the neck by an illegal immigrant on a train, railway in Charlotte. So yeah, this is very Charlotte of them to release this guy. He potentially was endangering, and then he was off on like this ridiculously low bond. Got off on this ridiculously low bond. So we're going to talk about that one. But Tulsi Gabbard, panic is setting in because Tulsi Gabbard, as you guys know, she's closing in on this 2020 election fraud. the 2020 election fraud. She's closing in on it. She made an appearance at this raid where they uncovered or they apprehended 700 boxes of evidence. I mean, they have boxes upon boxes of ballots from the 2020 election. They went to this election hub in Fulton County, Georgia, and they collected evidence. And a judge signed off on a search warrant because the judge said, hey, you've got probable cause here. Okay, so we're going to talk about it because they are after Tulsi Gabbard right now, the mainstream media. And then I do want to get to this. The midterms are coming. So what are the Illinois Democrats doing? They're targeting your kids at school. So we're going to talk about a bill that targets your children in school because the Illinois Democrats, they can't win just by honest means and just on their platforms. They can't win by just doing that. They have to target low information voters. And it's quite sad because they're constantly in your kids' classroom. They're not teaching them math or reading. No. They're politicizing the classroom yet again. And they just won't get the kids' reading scores up. They can't read at grade level, do math at grade level. Just teach academics. That's what you're there. That's what we pay you for. But anyway, we're going to get to that. I do want to talk about some racial slurs thrown at this black ICE agent. This guy comes up and starts telling him, you're separating children from families, which is not the Trump deportation policy at all. I don't understand why leftists don't realize this, but you can deport children with their mom and dads. And, you know, shame on mom and dad for bringing them here and breaking federal immigration law and subjecting their child. You obviously don't love your child. You're subjecting your child to deportation, not giving them permanency. And I would argue it's borderline abusive for parents to come here to the United States, break federal immigration law, drag their kids with them. I've talked with immigrants before who have come over the border. Do you realize what that's like, border jumping with small children? You run the risk. You have to pay. Usually this is how it happens. You have to pay a guy with big biceps, tattoos, and a gun, cartel member, a human trafficker. You have to pay him $3,000 a head about and get him to traffic you over the border, not even completely across the United States, just close enough to where you can jump the border. And you put your kids in that sort of situation. What the hell's wrong with you? Kids should be taken away from you and given to parents who want to adopt. The child should be given to loving parents. There's plenty of people out there willing to adopt children, like Liam. Liam Ramos is who I'm talking about. His father, Adrian, took off on foot when ICE agents pulled over the vehicle they were in. And then he took off on foot and left his child there. Anyway, yeah, the scum of the earth, these people who bring their children to the United States and break federal immigration law, knowing full well that it's possible they'd be deported, knowing the risks of really participating in trafficking children across a border with the help of cartels, largely. So, scum of the earth. Anyway, the leftists are screaming racial slurs at this ICE agent, and this ICE agent got that treatment. Nobody's more racist than a liberal. I'm telling you, they're extremely racist. You know, I came across a tweet actually, and this is really fascinating. In the South, there is no segregation. You don't have like pockets of Black communities or urban areas, as we would call them in Illinois. You don't have that. There's not a huge income disparity. So I like to say that, or I saw this on X, it was a tweet. People in the South aren't racist. They just demand high character. Okay. Everybody demands high character of everyone. Hey, you've got to be a Christian, right here in the Bible Belt, like Christian. The Democrats are even pro-life, which is fascinating. And as long as you act right, we're cool with you. Okay. And that goes for white people, black people, doesn't matter. As long as you act appropriately in society, we're fine. We're going to live next year. There's no need for segregation. In the North, this is fascinating. They let the black community run wild. They actually enable it through their government welfare programs. And they don't provide discipline through the police department for black youth. And they enable men out of enable the black community, where the welfare system is the new slavery. Women are not staying with black men because the government has stepped in as daddy, and there is no daddy in the home to discipline. Fatherless homes is what's wrong with the black community. And where does that come from? That comes from government stepping in and acting as father in the North, particularly, I would say, in Illinois, Chicago. And this is why you have like white wine mom pockets where they say, oh, yeah, they can do whatever they want. Okay, they can thug it out. They can go and commit retail theft, the black youth in Chicago. We're okay with it just as long as they're segregated from us, just as long as they're in this part of Chicago and they're not in my fancy Naperville white suburb. Okay, so yeah, liberals, extremely racist. Democrats, extremely racist. They're enslaving the black community through a welfare state, a nanny state, and they're taking fathers out of the home through this welfare system. So tangent, but liberals are the most racist people. Conservatives, people who vote Republican, most people down here in the Bible Belt, we're all, hey, as long as you treat me right, and as long as I treat you right, we're not going to have a problem. We're going to live by each other. We're not going to segregate you or enslave you to a welfare nanny state system and have you reliant on the white man. We're all going to make the same. We're all going to live next to each other. That's the way it is in the South. You wouldn't know it. But it's something I've learned just in recent weeks. It's very fascinating. It's a culture shock almost because I grew up, the outside of like certain pockets, there's black areas, there's white areas in Illinois. Everybody knows that. And I grew up that way. That's just the way it goes. And I didn't realize how racist that really was till I came here. And I'm like, wow, there's no income disparities. People live next to each other. This is wild. It's great. It's diverse. It's true diversity, and it's wonderful. Anyway, let's talk about the high-speed chase. We'll get to the black ICE agent being called the N-word by leftists because they're racist. But let's talk about the high-speed chase from yesterday. Took place on Monday. I talked about it on Tuesday. I didn't have a ton of details about the suspects involved here. There were 4 suspects. This was crazy. They took off in traffic erratically. They were in a high-speed chase. Police, it was on slick black ice. They were weaving in and out of traffic. There was 11 inches of snow that dumped on Charlotte, North Carolina. I shared with you this dramatic footage. If you missed it yesterday, I'll play it again. It was local news footage from WSOC TV. And they captured one of the suspects fleeing on foot. So they get to a neighborhood, a small neighborhood, and they slide to a stop, okay, because they're on black ice. They slide to a stop, and then all 4 of them get out of the car and they run in different directions. The cops apprehended all 4 suspects. I'm just interested in this suspect in the video. there's a little canine cutie pie running after, chasing this suspect through the woods in the video. This one suspect, he jumps over a creek, jumps over a snow-covered hill, or jumps onto a snow-covered hill, runs up the hill, hops a fence, but he was captured by one of the officers who clinged onto him through this residential fence. Here's the video clip in case you missed it. Here we go. All right, so no sound. It's just local TV footage. He jumps into the creek. This is the suspect. There's a little playground there. He's stumbling. It's slick. Okay. He's crawling over. The canine and his officer are right there behind him. He grabs him through the fence, which is just so, incredible. Like, wow. And then the canine's right there, and he's like, you got this, you got this. And then he's holding him until the other cops get there. So his colleagues get there. And then the other cops get there. They're stumbling up the hill. It's really icy. The guy with the no shirt, or like with sleeveless shirt, this guy gets me. He's funny. He's not as impressive, I would say, as the guy who's like holding this suspect through this fence. But he does wind up hopping the fence and then pushing this playground to the side. I think it's kind of funny. Watch the guy with the no sleeves here. I love this guy. He comes up barely, grabs onto the fence because it's so slick. This guy's pushing the playground out of place, trying to apprehend him. And this guy, I think he climbs the fence. No, he doesn't. No, okay, sleeveless guy never climbs the fence. This guy climbs the fence. And he's a little late to the party, but he shoves the playground out of the way. Okay, I love this video. I think it's funny. Funny, but it's also like gives me a whole new perspective on the work police do, and it's not easy. Try running up a hill, with snow, ice, grabbing onto a guy through a residential fence. You've got the playground in the way. Like, this is an intense scene, and I have a whole new respect for police officers after watching clips like that one. And it wasn't clear what led to the chase. Okay, yesterday I played that video. We didn't know who the suspects were, but today I do have more information for you. As always, subscribe to the channel because I've always got information for you, and you won't want to miss a second of it. But we've learned that these suspects stole a car. So they stole this vehicle that the officers were pursuing them in, they stole the car that they were running from the officers in. Okay. And we have found out that this perp in the video clip, okay, we found out who he is. And surprise, surprise, he's a repeat offender, and he's had 27 prior convictions. What? So according to court documents and a police report, we have confirmed that the guy arrested here in that clip, Rico Adams, Judge Keith Smith, he set his bond at $7,500, a measly $7,500. Okay. He was wanted on 5 outstanding warrants. So he's like, when they caught him, he was wanted, and had 5 outstanding arrest warrants. Okay. And he's been convicted 27 times. The affidavit says he stole a car from a woman, and the woman's keys were found in his pocket at the time of arrest. So, you guys want to know what the fellow looks like? I will show you. His mugshot, which has been taken several times because he's a repeat offender. People are saying that, of course, the bond was too low. I would say so. He's a repeat offender, obviously very dangerous. And he could have struck somebody and killed somebody. He was the driver of the vehicle, from what I understand. But he was in this chase, weaving in and out of traffic, black ice. Like, I don't get how you set bail at $7,000. That's insane. Here we go. I wanted to get this mugshot up for you so you guys could see what he looks like. Here we go. Okay, so he could have killed somebody during the chase. He was obviously violent with police officers resisting arrest. You know how much time and effort? I mean, there was like, what, 6 cops there? You know how much taxpayer resources went to this arrest and went to this chase, and they apprehended all 4 individuals. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of taxpayer resources. So, this kind of reminds me of Irina Zarutska. We know that took place in Charlotte. The Charlotte rail system, she was murdered by a killer who was a repeat offender, and she was stabbed in the neck. We all remember the horrifying footage, and he was an illegal immigrant too, by the way. But this guy was one of the main suspects. He was in this car, this dangerous car chase. He has a long rap sheet. Wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, it's daily in big cities like this, Charlotte, Chicago. There was a guy that set a woman on fire just recently in Chicago, where he had 70, I think, arrests, not convictions, but 70 arrests, was arrested and released 70 times. Irina's law, this is passed at federal level, is designed and was signed into law in October, but it's designed to go after repeat offenders. Okay, and it's supposed to address this persistent repeat offender problem in places like Charlotte, North Carolina, Chicago. But clearly there's a lot of work to be done here, Irina's law. And there's a lot of work to be done because obviously these repeat offenders and these judges, I mean, what's wrong with this judge that gave him a $7,000 bond? I don't get it. So there's a lot of work to be done. This was just implemented in December, Irina's law. And I'll give you a brief explanation of exactly what it does. So, restricts pretrial release for violent offenders and mandates stricter bail. And this was enacted, of course, after Zarutska was stabbed. It removes cashless bail for certain offenses. So this is federal law. I think our Safety Act here in the state of Illinois runs afoul to it. But it removes, cashless bail for certain offenses and forces psychiatric evaluations for defendants. So before release, you have to perform a psychiatric evaluation on the defendant before you release them on cashless bail. I don't know if states are actually implementing it. I'd imagine, or cities like Charlotte are actually implementing it or taking it seriously. There's obviously a lot of work to be done here. If they're not, the Fed should be ensuring that Irina's law is followed because it was passed by Congress in October and it went into effect in December. So we should be enforcing that law. Anyway, let's shift gears. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. So do appreciate you being here. Judges are never held accountable. Yeah. For some odd reason, I think that the judicial branch, and this is how Democrats have taken over and have become really the tyrants of my generation and have taken over the country. Here's how they do it. They do it through the judicial system, and then they do it through voting. So that brings me to Tulsi Gabbard, but they do it through, in Minnesota, importing Somalis. That was all done under Barack Obama, by the way. There was some sort of gay initiative to bring Somalis over here, Somali immigrants. That was all done they were all came in under Barack Obama, the Somali population, and it really just has taken off since then. But those are their voters, right? Low information, quite literally low IQ people who will vote for them, vote blue no matter who. Okay. And we're going to get to how Democrats target low information voters here in just a second. They're targeting your high schoolers in their classroom. They're just low information because they haven't lived that long. Okay. They're 18 years old. They're prone to be more emotional when they vote, and they vote with their gut and not their brain. Okay. So Democrats prey on these vulnerable populations and get them to vote for them. And they steal elections via, mail-in ballots, beefing up the voter registration rolls, the voter rolls, not taking off dead people, not taking off illegal immigrants on these voter rolls, and they make it easier to steal elections. We know this. Okay. Mail-in ballots make it easier to steal elections. I think it was a case in Portland, Oregon, where this landlady was requesting ballots for her tenants. Okay. Using the addresses. The tenants no longer lived there, but she was casting ballots in her tenants' names. Okay. So processes that Democrats are for example, automatic voter registration, where you sign up for a license. Illegal immigrants in the state of Illinois can sign up for a license, and they're automatically registered to vote. They say there's a back-end process that takes them off, right? But we know that that's not true. Otherwise, they'd be transparent and fork over their voter rolls to the Trump administration, who's asked for them, to make sure that they are complying with the National Voter Registration Act, and they're actually taking off illegal immigrants, dead people, people who leave the state and move. But Democrats are pro automatic voter registration, although it's a very intense policy or process that is, that makes it easier to steal elections, where for fraud to happen. Okay. Bloated voter rolls equals potential for fraud. Mail-in ballots. This is another policy that Democrats are for, and mail-in ballots are ripe for fraud, abuse. Okay. For abuses. So they go after our elections, and then they weaponize the judicial branch as well. And this is traditionally how people come into power, like in the form, like a banana republic. And they do this through policy. So things like the Safety Act that make it impossible for judges to use their judgment and to actually participate in this thing called, the judicial process. So they are proponents of things like that, like the Safety Act, cashless bail. And they've destroyed the courts by weaponizing it against their political opponents, nonprofit organizations constantly suing people like Donald Trump and their political opponents. So, yeah, that's how they take over the country. Voting, let's attack the democratic process, and let's attack the judicial system. Okay. Appreciate it. The comments, smash that like button. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard now, sticking on to this topic of voting. She's the director of national intelligence, and she is onto something. Okay. And the people are terrified. All the right people are terrified. Okay. And they're freaking out because Gabbard, she appeared on the scene of this operation. Now, we covered this operation a week or so ago. It was a search warrant. They obtained a search warrant by a judge who said, yes, you have probable cause here. So Fulton County, Georgia, the election hub operations center, she was there while they were carrying out the search warrant. Okay. Now, she was the subject, Tulsi Gabbard. All the right people are getting pissed about Tulsi Gabbard being there. They're like freaking out. And she was the subject recently of a Wall Street Journal piece where it's very thinly sourced. There's anonymous sources. And there was a leak to the Wall Street Journal about her. And we don't even know exactly what the complaint is about, but apparently there's a whistleblower who has a complaint about her, and the Wall Street Journal is like blasting her in this scandal. And I'm sorry, but when I read it, I'm like, this is fake. Okay. I think the whole purpose of this piece is to sideline her in this faux scandal and keep her from doing the work, or to, attack her before there's even an investigation or criminal charges brought about. That now this is huge. A judge said, hey, you've got probable cause here to go and do your criminal investigation. And this wasn't for subpoenas, like, oh, collect evidence so that way you can issue subpoenas. No, collect evidence so you can issue criminal charges. That's what the judge said to the FBI who carried out the search. So this is a big deal. And I've talked about this for the last couple of weeks. And she was there, Tulsi Gabbard, which I found interesting because she's a U.S. intelligence official. Okay, that means possibly foreign interference in our elections. Who knows? But this is what the Wall Street Journal had to say about Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, the U.S. intelligence official has alleged wrongdoing by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard in a whistleblower complaint that is so highly classified, it has sparked months of wrangling over how to share it with Congress. Okay, according to U.S. officials and others familiar with the matter. See, notice how they don't talk about what this unnamed U.S. intelligence official has alleged. What kind of wrongdoing did Tulsi do? Okay, they don't talk about any of that. They just say the complaint's highly classified, so we don't know what's in the complaint and what this official is alleging, but we know she did wrongdoing, and it's so bad that they don't even know how to share it with Congress. Okay, and where'd you get your information, Wall Street Journal? Well, according to U.S. officials and people familiar with the matter. Nice. Okay. They go on in the article and they say the filing of the complaint has prompted a continuing behind-the-scenes struggle about how to assess and handle it, with the unnamed whistleblower, a lawyer, accusing Gabbard of stonewalling the complaint. Okay. Again, what did she do? They don't know. They're just saying that it's just so intense. People don't know how to handle it or assess it or tell Congress about it. And Gabbard has been stonewalling the complaint. Gabbard's office rejects that characterization, contending it is navigating a unique set of circumstances and working to resolve the issue. Okay, so that's what Gabbard's office says. Again, I'm deep into the article here and reading this article, and that's all we've got. Okay, so we don't know what she did. We don't have the complaint. We don't have the whistleblower's name. All of this is according to unnamed sources. Okay, and that's all they've got in paragraph 13. Okay, this is deep in the article. And this tells me that, is this real? Or is this just a way to get Tulsi Gabbard to, bend the knee and not do the work that she's doing when it comes to this election fraud operation? So Gabbard answered written questions about the allegations from the Inspector General's office, a senior official at the spy agency said. Okay, so she answered questions about the allegations in written form. And she was asked those questions by the Inspector General's office. So it kind of gets deep in the weeds here, but the Wall Street Journal goes on. That prompted Inspector General at the time, Tamara Johnson, to determine that the allegations specifically about Gabbard weren't credible. Okay, so her answers, Gabbard, she answered the Inspector General's office, and the Inspector General at the time said, okay, looking at these answers, I don't think the allegations are credible. Okay, why would Wall Street Journal even do a piece on this? They've got absolutely nothing. Johnson remains employed at the agency and didn't make the agency, which didn't make her available for an interview. Okay, so they've got nothing. Okay, the Wall Street Journal, but they printed this headline, right? And they were like, Tulsi Gabbard allegations, whistleblower. So extreme they don't even know how to tell Congress about this complaint. So they've made a big hubbub about this. So as it turns out, it looks like, even according to their own reporting at the Wall Street Journal, it looks like Gabbard, she did handle the whistleblower complaint by answering questions to the Inspector General's office in written form. And they were trying to say that she was stonewalling, right, in the article. Turns out there was no delay in producing answers. The whistleblower complaint is with the Congressional Intelligence Committee committees for review. Gabbard here, she took to X. Okay, so I'm going to share with you what she said on X. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it because it's long, but I'll pull it up for you. She makes a response to Congress about this allegation or complaint. I really don't even know I still don't know what it's all about. But here we go. So she writes a letter, and it's lengthy, but I'm going to walk you through this in a summarized way. Okay. But you guys can go read it. I like to share my references. She put this out on X. Okay. Okay. So she says, contrary in the X post to blatantly false and slanderous accusations being made against me by members of Congress and their friends in propaganda media, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has and will continue to take action under my statutory authorities to secure our nation and ensure the integrity of our elections. Okay. So she says, this is my response to Congress, and I'm showing it to you here on the screen. I'm going to paraphrase what she says in this letter. Okay. So she addresses the letter to the Select Committee on Intelligence, where this complaint is at and where they're reviewing it. Okay. So Tulsi Gabbard here is making it crystal clear that election security is a national security issue. Okay. And it is not a partisan talking point. This shouldn't be a partisan talking point that, hey, election security is not a partisan issue. And she is grounding that claim in this letter squarely in law, not vibes. Okay. Like, that's her job, is election security, because it is national security. Okay. And she explains that her presence at the FBI's execution of the Fulton County search warrant was lawful, limited, and observational. And she carried it out under her explicit statutory authority as Director of National Intelligence. There were no orders given, no meddling, no shadow directives from, President Donald Trump. This was her doing her job as it is laid out in statute. Okay. So even the DNI's own general counsel signed off on her actions, which were fully within bounds of her job description statutorily. Okay. So the director of national intelligence lawyer says, oh, yeah, you're good, Gabbard, to go to the scene here and participate in the FBI's execution of the search warrant. So she goes on and she reminds Congress that the office, DNI, is legally required. It's not optional. They are legally required to coordinate, integrate, and analyze intelligence related to foreign interference in U.S. elections. Okay, so we're starting to get more pieces of what went on that day at the operations center in Fulton County. Okay, so there might be some foreign interference in our U.S. election. This is obviously surrounding the 2020 election. Okay, so that authority goes back decades and spans multiple laws, administrations, and bipartisan national security frameworks. She says in this letter, this isn't some power grab, she says, okay, right? And I'm summarizing and paraphrasing. You guys can go read the full letter if you want. But this is literally my job. And it's not just me who has done this. For decades, you've had administrations, looking at foreign interference in our elections, and that's kind of my job. So she lays it out point by point, how multiple statutes, executive orders, national security directives, from Obama to Trump to Biden have all reaffirmed the same thing. Foreign interference in elections is a serious threat, and the DNI is not only obligated, but they're expected to be front and center in assessing foreign interference in our elections. But here's the kicker the media doesn't want to highlight. Gabbard explicitly states that she will not be or will not release half-baked or incomplete intelligence assessments just to score political points or feed into the hysteria. Okay, translation, she's not going to do what the Democrats did. Russiagate, okay, Russia hoax. So this is not going to be a Russia hoax 2.0. Okay. Bottom line here, Tulsi Gabbard, in this letter, she comes off as calm, methodical, law-abiding, serious, and she's serious about protecting our elections from foreign interference. Okay, so and she respects chain of command, respects the Constitution, respects intelligence process, and this is something Washington could use a lot more of. Obviously, Russia hoax. Okay, they obviously did not give a damn about the Constitution or respect the intelligence process. They used intelligence agencies as political weapons in that. She's not doing that here. And she makes that very clear in her letter that she's not going rogue or this isn't rogue behavior. And this is what adult leadership looks like. And the usual suspects here are terrified. And by usual suspects, I mean Wall Street Journal and propagandists and Democrats. They are terrified of this because she has her ducks in a row and she's citing statute that allowed her to be there. They got the search warrant through a judge, and this is a search warrant, probable cause. Hey, you've got enough probable cause here for a search warrant for criminal charges, not for subpoenas. This is huge. So this scandal, that they're pushing in the Wall Street Journal, which we don't even really know what she did. I still don't know what she did because we don't have the name of the whistleblower. We don't have what the complaint or the nature of the complaint is really about. By paragraph 13 in the Wall Street Journal, like we know there's a complaint and we know that it's with the Select Committee on Intelligence and that they're reviewing it. And that, it's just so scandalous that they don't even know how to share it with members of Congress quite yet. So they're trying to push out this scandal, and they're getting help from the media to do it. Obviously, Wall Street Journal, and I mean, I'm sorry, but the unnamed sources, it's clear to me that this is either not real or it's not serious enough to where, we should take this with a grain of salt. Okay. At the same time, you've got the Wall Street Journal saying that there's this scandal and that she's got these allegations from this whistleblower. And then her response to all of that was answering the Inspector General's questions. And upon that, the woman who was with the Inspector General's office had said, oh, these allegations are sort of baseless, or like they don't check out. Okay. So they've got that going on to make her look bad in the headlines. And then we've got this whole thing from the Washington Post. So you've got the Wall Street Journal attacking her, and then you've got the Washington Post attacking her. And I look at this stuff every day, folks, and I start to see patterns, and I'm like, wow, this is like a full-blown attempt to try to silence or scare Tulsi Gabbard into silence and into not doing her job, which is to look at foreign interference when it comes to our elections, because that is national security. So the Washington Post launched an article. Sorry, need a sip of water. And their whole thing here in this article is, why was she even there? Right? And this is what the Washington Post puts out. There are only two explanations for why Gabbard was in Fulton County, according to Senate Intelligence Committee Vice Chairman Mark R. Warner. He's a Democrat from Virginia. So funny how this Wall Street scandal, the complaint that we don't know the nature of, or the allegations, the nature of the allegations from this whistleblower from within the DNI. We don't know anything about it, but this complaint is sitting in the Intelligence Committee, which he happens to be the vice chairman of. Mark Warner, he's Democrat. He said there's only two explanations as to why Gabbard was there at the search warrant. Okay. And working with the FBI to execute this search warrant that was signed off by a judge, because the judge said, you have probable cause for criminal charges here. Go collect all the evidence you need and then investigate. Okay. So he goes on and he says, Warner here, he says, one is that she believes that there's legitimate foreign intelligence connection, okay, to this investigation, where they're going to possibly draft up criminal charges against people in Fulton County. And like I said, we're still not like 100% on what exactly they're going after the Fulton County election officials for criminally, or what they're seeking to charge them with criminally. Now, there was two statutes, federal statutes in the warrant, listed in the warrant, and it talks about how you have to preserve election records. Otherwise, that's a crime if you don't preserve them for a certain period of time. I think it's like 22 months. So, if they find out that Fulton County election officials after the 2020 election were destroying ballots or destroying records, they could charge those individuals under a federal statute. And then, of course, there was another federal statute that said, hey, if you were swaying the election at all, if you were tabulating votes multiple times, if you were encouraging voters to vote a particular way, if you were interfering in the election process, there's a federal statute that they listed there in the search warrant. So I don't know exactly what they're going for against, and I'd imagine the evidence would probably be indicative of what they wind up charging the certain people with. But he's saying here, the chairman, Mark Warner, is saying that it goes beyond just that. Okay, some domestic problems with our elections. He says that the one reason why she might be there is because she believes there is legitimate foreign intelligence connection in this case. Okay. So then this is where it gets funny, because remember, this guy's a Democrat. She believes that, but she violated her legal obligation to keep intelligence committees fully and currently informed. Okay, so he says that's cool, essentially, that she thinks that there's foreign intelligence involved, or she has legitimate foreign intelligence that says that, hey, there might be foreign interference in our 2020 election. But she didn't tell me, or she didn't tell the intelligence committees, members of Congress, and they weren't fully informed. And that's a problem, right? So, but that's kind of getting ahead of herself, right? They have to gather evidence. At this point, it's in the baby stages. Okay, they are just gathering evidence because there's probable cause and there's potentially a crime that's been committed. Why would she tell you about anything if they don't have the evidence yet? Okay. And then he goes on, or she's attempting, and I love this, and this is what he tells the Washington Post, to insert the intelligence community into what he described as, quote, a domestic political stunt designed to legitimize conspiracy theories that undermine democracy. And there it is. So this is a Dem, and he's like, yeah, well, if she thinks that there's like legitimate foreign interference, then she should have told us about it. Okay, but like, I don't know yet. That's why we're carrying out the search warrant. Okay. Unlike what the Democrats did with Russia hoax. Okay, I've got my ducks in a row, and I'm going to make sure that I have all the evidence, and I'm going to make that connection that, hey, there was foreign interference with the evidence. I'm not going to say that there was foreign interference when there wasn't. Okay, or tell people, and I'm not obligated to keep you in the loop at this point. Okay, there's nothing to keep you in the loop about. And then he goes on and he says, but really it could be is a political stunt, to designed to delegitimize our democracy, or legitimize conspiracy and undermine our democracy. Okay, so that's the Washington Post. Okay, so they've got this whole thing in the Wall Street Journal saying that there's this mysterious whistleblower who has these serious allegations against her. And this complaint is sitting in the Intelligence Committee right now. Okay, the Select Committee on Intelligence. It's sitting there. And they're figuring out how to tell Congress about it. Okay, and then you've got the Washington Post. They're saying, why was she even there? Now you've got the propagandists, New York Times. They just went straight for the jugular with this story. God. They are saying that because President Donald Trump called up agents and perhaps congratulated the agents who participated in the Fulton County operation, and because he called them, during the operation, that's serious and will be ammunition for the defense if things were to happen, criminal charges were to come down. The defense would shut this down because clearly President Donald Trump is facilitating this whole thing. Although the search warrant came from a judge who said, yeah, you've got enough here to go and find more evidence to get your criminal charges. Like, that's a big deal. But they're saying it's all at the direction of President Donald Trump. Okay. So here's what the New York Times says about Tulsi. And she's got knives just coming after her. Okay. She's got the Wall Street Journal. She's got the Washington Post. And now here's this gay story. This is like really, bottom of the barrel, like gay. Okay. Like a gay attack. It's kind of like one of those like little sissy fights. This is probably the worst of them from the New York Times. Okay. By any measure, the FBI's search of an election center in Fulton County, Georgia last week was extraordinary. Agents seized truckloads of 2020 ballots as President Donald Trump harnessed the levers of government. God. To not only give legitimacy to his false claims of widespread voter fraud, but also to try to build a criminal case against those who he believes have wronged him. Okay. So the New York Times goes on here and they say what happened the next day was in some ways even more unusual than the New York Times has learned. Okay, so they're dressing this up. They're saying that, hey, Trump, he used government, the FBI and Tulsi Gabbard, and he used them to go in there. And it's because he wants to, provide legitimacy or project support for his false claims of widespread voter fraud, legitimize conspiracy theories. This is another talking point that was echoed in the Washington Post with the Mark Warner guy. Okay. And then they go on. Behind closed doors, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, met with some of the FBI agents, members of the Bureau Field Office in Atlanta, which is conducting the election inquiry. 3 people with knowledge of the meeting said. So they're trying to paint her, Tulsi Gabbard, as this, like, she's secretly meeting with FBI agents, and they're coordinating together to conduct this election inquiry. Really, what happened was a search warrant signed off by a judge was given to the FBI to conduct an investigation. Tulsi Gabbard, for whatever reason, was there because she has a duty as the National Director of Intelligence to ensure that there was no foreign interference in our 2020 elections. Okay, and she's there, and she wrote a letter and explained herself as to why she was there. Hey, statutorily, I'm obligated to be there if there's possible foreign interference. And they're collecting evidence, and I have to be in on the loop on that. Okay, so the New York Times, what one am I on? The New York Times. Okay, we went Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times. Behind closed doors, she met with these FBI agents, okay, at the field office in Atlanta, and they're conducting this election inquiry. Okay, they could not say why Miss Gabbard, who also appeared on the site, was at the search. Was there. They couldn't say why. These 3 people with knowledge of this meeting, that she was with FBI investigators. So you knew that she had a meeting with FBI investigators ahead of the search. Okay, but you don't know why these 3 people, unnamed sources, you don't know why Tulsi was there. She had a meeting, but you don't know why she was there. Okay. And then they go on, but her continued presence has raised eyebrows given her role in overseeing the nation's intelligence agencies does not include on-site involvement in criminal investigative work. That's not true. So Tulsi, in her letter, you guys can go read it, she cites statute like, hey, if there's possible foreign interference, then yeah, that's where I start to get involved, because election interference by foreign governments, that's a national security issue, which is what would trigger me to be there. Okay, so that's just not true. They're just outright lying to you here in the New York Times that, you know, intelligence agencies are not involved in criminal investigative work. No, like that is on-site involvement if she suspects that there's foreign interference or that they're gathering evidence to possibly look into whether foreign interference happened in the 2020 election. Her being on the ground during this criminal investigation, that just makes sense, right? Like that, because election interference by foreign governments is definitely a matter of national security. So they go on, the New York Times, they say, what occurred during the meeting was even further outside the bounds of normal law enforcement procedure. Miss Gabbard used her cell phone to call President Donald Trump, who did not initially pick up, but called back shortly after. The people said 3 people who witnessed her with these FBI agents at this meeting knew she was there, but didn't know why she would be on the ground with the FBI executing the search warrant. But then they also, like, on top of seeing her at the meeting with these FBI investigators, they also happened to see her using her cell phone calling President Donald Trump, who didn't pick up initially, but then picked up. Okay. Here we go. The New York Times says the coordinated campaign across the nation's 3 most prestigious. Oh, no. Yes. Okay. So they're saying that this is a coordinated effort. Okay. In this article. And like, that's what they're trying to get at here. They're trying to say that Trump is calling Tulsi Gabbard and saying, you know, go work with the FBI and like, you know, meet with them and, you know, legitimize these conspiracy theories that the 2020 election was stolen. But like, all of this is thrown out the window. It wasn't coordinated because you'd have to say that the judge was in on it too. And she issued the search warrant and said that they had probable cause to go in and collect more evidence for criminal charges. So like, everybody's in on this, you know, and they're trying to say that it's a coordinated effort by Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, the FBI, and Donald Trump. Which, I mean, to an extent, like, yeah, that's kind of how this thing works. Like, if they come across, you know, criminal investigation that foreign countries interfered in the 2020 election, whether that be through ballot tabulators, you know, Dominion voting machines, like, okay, like if they come upon that in their criminal investigation, the FBI, they've got to tell Tulsi Gabbard about that because that's a matter of national security. And then Tulsi Gabbard has to talk about that with President Donald Trump because he's the commander in chief. Okay, so hypothetically, let's just say China, okay, a foreign enemy of ours, hacked into some of our voting machines in the 2020 election, okay, and swayed the election towards Joe Biden. Hypothetical, okay? YouTube's already probably going to boot me off. Okay, so say that happened. Like, does the New York Times just expect the FBI not to tell Tulsi Gabbard about that or not to involve Tulsi Gabbard in this? She has to be. And then do they expect Tulsi Gabbard not to talk to President Donald Trump about that? Okay, he has to make a decision as commander in chief what he's going to do about that. So, of course, it's a coordinated campaign and effort to get down to the bottom of what happened during the 2020 election and what happened if there was fraud in the 2020 election and who to hold accountable. Like, of course, it's a coordinated effort. So here you have all three of these print outlets. I talked about Wall Street Journal. That's a knife going after Tulsi Gabbard. And like I said, it's so silly. I don't even know what the allegations are from this whistleblower from within her office. Nobody really does. It's all very vague and unnamed sources, Wall Street Journal. And then you have the Washington Post talking about Mark Warner, the guy who sits on that committee where that complaint has been submitted, and they're reviewing it as the vice chair. And you've got him kind of pushing out this narrative that says, we don't even know why she'd be there. Like, why would she even be there? And then you've got this one from the New York Times trying to say that Tulsi Gabbard's on her cell phone talking to President Donald Trump, and he's directing her every move, and that he's directing the FBI's every move, and Tulsi and the FBI are in on it together with Donald Trump. Like, okay. So you've got these three print outlets discrediting Tulsi Gabbard. Okay. And her investigation into what's increasingly looking more and more like a totally fraudulent 2020 election, potentially a fraudulent 2020 election that had foreign interference. And I want to bring this up because this is starting to look a lot like what the deep state did to sandbag President Donald Trump during his first term. Okay, so this is just like, when I see this, when I see three print outlets doing these hit pieces on Tulsi Gabbard, it just goes to show you you're pissing off the right people. Because they did this to Donald Trump in his first term, the deep state. The deep state, they worked with propagandists to sandbag President Donald Trump during his first term. So let me show you how eerily similar this is to what they did to President Donald Trump. What they're doing to Tulsi Gabbard now is what they did to President Donald Trump in his first term. So hold on one sec. Okay. So what they're doing to Tulsi Gabbard now, they've already done. It is a playbook that the deep state does every time you're over the target, every time you're about ready to uncover something. They like pull this playbook out and they get their propagandists to pull the knives out on you. Okay. So in August of 2019, on August 12th, 2019, an anonymous intelligence community whistleblower. Now that sounds eerily similar to what they're doing to Tulsi Gabbard. Okay. There's this anonymous whistleblower who has a complaint against her, and these allegations are extremely serious. Okay. We now know who that whistleblower was in 2019. Eric Ciaramella. Okay. Eric Ciaramella, intelligence community whistleblower, filed a formal complaint with the Intelligence Community Inspector General Michael Atkinson. The complaint alleged that Trump abused his office by soliciting foreign interference in the 2020 election. Okay. And the foreign interference, of course, was President Donald Trump allegedly asking Ukrainian President Zelensky for information on the Biden administration's and Hunter Biden's dealings with Ukraine and its energy company Burisma. We remember that Donald Trump said it was a perfect phone call. Okay. By mid-September 2019, so August, the complaints filed. They say that Donald Trump had this inappropriate phone call with Ukrainian president, and he was trying to get the Ukrainian president to give him information about Biden, whom he was running against in 2020, and that would have been foreign interference, okay? But we know it's not now, okay? By mid-September 2019, you had media reports from, you guessed it, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, based on anonymous sources again, And those reports began to emerge, revealing the outlines of the whistleblower complaint and details that Trump had been trying to pressure Zelensky during that July call. So it was a call made in July. The complaint was lodged in August by this whistleblower who we now know the name of. And then we've gotten like drippings through the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post in September, kind of outlining details of this complaint where Trump pressured Zelensky in this call to investigate the Bidens, okay, and that he was going to investigate the Bidens in their business dealings, Burisma, Hunter Biden, and he was pressuring Zelensky for that information, which would have been, foreign interference. But keep in mind, all of this was done in a hall of mirrors, okay? Rumors, leaks, interpretations of those rumors and leaks, okay? And ultimately what came out of it was a nothing burger, okay? And there was an impeachment trial over it, right? And the impeachment turned up nothing, right? And everything, like, it was all just a hall of mirrors, okay? All of it. It was a perfect phone call, as Donald Trump said, famously. That said, the impeachment served the purpose of freezing U.S. diplomacy and really screwing over President Donald Trump and hamstringing President Donald Trump during a crucial period of time. Okay, so this impeachment was crippling, okay, President Donald Trump to properly, serve the country at that time. This was a crucial period of time. September, this was like right before COVID. And keep in mind, at this point, they had demented Joe Biden being prepped as the Democrat nominee for president. Okay, so, we could say that, okay, no harm done, but there was harm done. Our president was going through an impeachment during a crucial time. Like, they were putting Joe Biden out there, and eventually Joe Biden, got elected, and they were trying to interfere with the election with this faux impeachment based on all of this rumors and interpretation of rumors, leaks out of the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post with unnamed sources. It was all hall mirrors. And it was damaging to our country because ultimately you've got Joe Biden being the nominee for president. And yeah, this was all very damaging. And while none of these hits on Gabbard up until this point are enough to force her to resign, and I don't think they're strong enough to like get her to like bend the knee or anything like that, I do think that this gives us some insight here as to what their playbook is. Okay, this is a long game for them. They are, through the Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, doing rumors and leaks, hall of mirrors, and they're going to try to, and this is, I believe, the long game that they're pursuing, they're going to try to get her to stop what she's doing. Okay. There's evidence out there. They've got 700 boxes of evidence. Okay. They've collected, the FBI. And this is in Fulton County, Georgia, and who knows what kind of evidence they collected. Okay. And they're probably in other jurisdictions as well, not just Fulton County, Georgia, where a large number of Biden ballots mysteriously appeared after the polls. We all were there. Okay. The 2020 election. We all were there. And when the polls closed, all of a sudden there was a big jump for Joe Biden. We went to bed thinking Donald Trump won the election. Then all of a sudden there was a big jump of mail-in ballots in certain jurisdictions, Fulton County being one of them. And, the problem is how to prevent them from ever being subjected to public scrutiny. You know, they have to be scrutinized. Okay, this has to be scrutinized. This evidence, clearly there was probable cause that warranted the search warrant, and we have to scrutinize this process and how it played out, where these Biden ballots mysteriously appeared after the polls closed. We have to look into that, and there's nothing wrong with scrutinizing that. It should be a bipartisan issue, election integrity. So I am going to take a quick break. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. I'll be right back. We're going to wrap this story up, and then I got to get to Illinois and what they're doing in our high school classrooms. I'll be right back.
Real strength doesn't need applause, and real faith doesn't flex for attention. Jesus said, when you fast, don't walk around looking miserable. Try to look holy. That's not devotion. That's performance. And God doesn't reward actors. Matthew 6, verses 16 through 18, is Jesus calling men to fast in secret, where only the Father sees, because fasting isn't about proving your discipline. It's about pursuing God with hunger, so real, you trade food for fire. You don't fast to earn points. You don't fast to make space. You weaken the flesh so the spirit gets louder. You say no to your cravings so you can say yes to something deeper. But here's the catch. It's got to be real. Not for your boys, not for social media, just you and God. In the quiet, in the dark. That's where rewards are born. In silence, in secret, in the furnace of unseen obedience. You want to be strong in public? Train in private. Fast without a stage. Pray without applause. Obey without a crowd. Your Father sees in secret, and He's the only one who reward what matters. Patriot Pump doesn't give you just energy. It keeps you focused. No fluff, no crash, just clean, hard-driving fuel for men who train with purpose and sacrifice. If you're building discipline in the dark, this is your edge. Train hard, stay sharp.
Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I so do appreciate you being here. Subscribe to the channel. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about the deep state. So the deep state here, they're doing the same playbook that they did with President Donald Trump, 2019, August of 2019, where they had this unnamed whistleblower. We do know the name of the whistleblower now. Fast forward, it was the complaint about the Zelensky call led to the impeachment. This had a huge effect on our country, the impeachment. Okay. But we've got President Donald Trump here talked about in the New York Times. Okay, so we talked about the Wall Street Journal. They have the unnamed whistleblower against Tulsi Gabbard. They lodged a complaint. We still don't know the details of that complaint and what she did, but we didn't know it about President Donald Trump either until the Washington Post and New York Times, or Washington Post and other propaganda started to leak it and rumor it and interpret the rumors and interpret the leaks. And it ultimately led to like an impeachment, but it was like a full-blown Hall of Mirrors situation that led to that impeachment. And it was a perfect phone call, as President Donald Trump said. Now, here's what the New York Times is saying about Tulsi Gabbard being there and having this phone call with President Donald Trump while on the ground. She like called him. He didn't initially pick up, but he called her back. And then they're saying that Tulsi Gabbard met with FBI investigators, and they're like trying to say that this is a coordinated campaign. Well, of course it is. They're criminally investigating 2020 election fraud. They're trying to see if people were at Fulton County I'd imagine through collecting 700 boxes of evidence that they're going to try to criminally charge people through federal statutes. There's federal statutes that say you can't destroy election records within 22 months. Okay. They're going to be looking at election interference. Like, did people tell people to vote a certain way? Did election workers tabulate votes more than once? There's federal statutes that they're looking at and possible criminal charges, I'm sure. And they're doing that and also keeping Tulsi Gabbard in the loop. Hey, what if there was foreign interference? We're collecting this data. It extends to ballot machines. Okay, we're collecting this evidence. And what if we stumble upon the very real possibility that, an enemy of ours, a foreign enemy of ours, tapped into our voting machines? Okay, we got to tell Tulsi Gabbard about that. And then Tulsi Gabbard has to tell President Donald Trump about that. So, of course, it's coordinated to an extent. But the New York Times, they said this, quote, by speaking directly with investigators, Mr. Trump may have provided significant ammunition to any future defense should the investigation yield criminal charges. See, they're already prepping. Okay, so now their problem here, the deep state, they've got to figure out how to keep this out of public scrutiny. They've got to figure out, okay, if this comes to criminal investigative charges, how do we prevent them from ever being scrutinized, our elections? How do we prevent the public from scrutinizing the 2020 election? And how do we keep control of this narrative? So they're already kind of laying the groundwork here, and they're playing the long game. Okay, so I think this proves that criminal and charges are inevitable at this point. They collected 700 boxes. Who knows what's lurking in those boxes, what evidence there is. I think at this point, like, criminal charges might be imminent. The judge just signing off on the warrant saying that there's probable cause is pretty damning. Okay, so they're getting ahead of this. The New York Times, they're saying, okay, well, whatever, Donald Trump probably shot himself here in the foot by calling Tulsi Gabbard on the ground. If this yields criminal charges, his conversation with agents, and he called agents and congratulated them, I guess, on the ground, would probably become part of an effort to have the case dismissed as vindictive prosecution. See, they're already the deep state is laying the groundwork for the defense. These people hate you. They hate our country. They're propagandists. Why the hell are you propping up the defense prior to criminal charges even being issued? Okay, there are no criminal charges right now. They just did the search warrant. We don't know what's in those boxes. But they're laying the groundwork here for the defense. They're saying that because Donald Trump was on the phone with his director of national intelligence, and he was on the phone with the FBI, that this is some sort of vindictive prosecution and it's a coordinated effort. And this is all politically vindictive. Come on, folks. These are interagency, intergovernmental agencies. They're working together because, hey, if China was involved in our elections or tapped into our election machines, that's huge. And the president ought to know. Tulsi Gabbard ought to know. The FBI ought to know. Okay, so they go on in the New York Times and they say, alternatively, if such a case went to trial, defense lawyers would presumably try to elicit testimony from the FBI agents who spoke to the president in the early stages of the investigation, or possibly from Mr. Trump himself. Okay, the search itself raises serious questions. It's unclear what evidence was presented to the federal judge who established probable cause for the search warrant for ballots and other materials, which are now more than 5 years old. Now, that's one thing that I'm concerned about is, this is 5 years old. Are you even going to get anything good out of this? I mean, here we are in 2026. Are they going to get anything good to get the criminal charges? I don't know. But their reaction to this, like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and, the deep state using these propagandists, using the media, because that's what they do. They did it in 2019 with President Donald Trump and the Zelensky call. And like, the fact that they're doing this makes me think that criminal charges are imminent. But anyway, so yeah, it's unclear, what the judge looked at. Okay, if it's unclear what the judge looked at and you don't have the evidence of what the judge looked at that said, hey, there's probable cause here for a criminal, you can't say that, like, criminal charge it. Like, why are you propping up the defense and you don't even know what led to the search warrant? You don't even know what's going to come out of the search warrant. You're already lining up the defense for them to, come after Donald Trump and call this vindictive prosecution. But multiple prior investigations, the New York Times says this, including one at the end of Mr. Trump's first term by the same FBI office and federal prosecutors working at the time for Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in Atlanta, found no evidence to support his false claims of significant voter fraud. Yeah, because they're a part of the same deep state that's probably feeding you this information, New York Times. Okay. Multiple prior investigations. Okay. But that's not, who cares about the prior investigations? We're here now. There was probable cause. A search warrant was issued. They're collecting evidence. This is where we're at today. What is that evidence going to bring up now? Okay. So like, they're just so nasty. Mainstream media, nasty. Propagandists, nasty. Deep state is obviously coordinating with them. The very people who conducted those multiple prior investigations are probably all of your unnamed sources right now. Okay. The very fact that somebody, and all these people, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, the very fact that they're pulling out all the stops here to discredit not only the investigation, but Tulsi Gabbard. They're discrediting the investigation into election integrity in 2020. This is a sign that something very criminal has happened, I think. The fact that they are pulling out this playbook again, this tells me, oh boy, what happened? And what are we going to find in those 700 boxes that was obtained by Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard? Like, this is what, I mean, crazy that they're pulling out the same trick in 2026 that they were doing in 2019 against President Donald Trump to try to get him out of office. Okay, and impeach him and do everything they can to get him to stop doing his job as president. They're pulling out all the same stops, rumors and leaks and propagandists like Washington Post and Wall Street Journal and New York Times. Like, they're pulling out their devious plots again. And they are terrified, I think, of what is about to come down and what crimes were committed in this 2020 election. I think they're terrified that their plots to cover it up, their plots to even still tee it up to where, the defense can, or those charged criminally can defend themselves against the charges. Like, they're still actively working against you and me, people who want integrity in our elections, these propagandists in the deep state. They're still working like overtime to ensure that we don't, or that the bad actors who stole this election possibly aren't brought to justice. Look, if our elections are corrupt, this is really bad. It calls into question every action the government has ever done. If our elections are corrupt, if this 2020 election was fraudulent in some sort of way, whether that's just domestically, where you had election workers pulling out ballots from suitcases and tabulating things multiple times, destroying those 2020 records prior to the 22-month requirement, that might just be what we find in this search warrant. And that's, whatever. Maybe it goes beyond that. Being Tulsi Gabbard was there, foreign interference, foreign enemy hacking into our voting machines. If that's going on, if that corruption is happening, okay, this is going to break the bond between we, the people, and the government. Okay, and the founders had created this bond in 1787, and you've broken that bond with us, and that is going to be huge. And it's not impossible or difficult to even fathom that hostile foreign actors could be involved here. Okay, as well as our own self-hating United States, like they can't stand the United States and they want to see her crumble. I think that they could be involved as well. But the fact that you have Gabbard on the ground working with the FBI, that's not anything wrong. Okay, it makes sense. It's good for the country that they're working together to ensure, like, hey, the evidence that we collect, none of it points to foreign interference in our election. Serving a search warrant, all of this kind of points to possible foreign interference alongside, that raw criminality where you have people who hate the United States and are self-hating elitists and would prefer we all speak Chinese, I guess. I don't know. they just don't like us and they work actively against our democratic process. You probably have the raw criminality there, and it's increasingly looking like there could be foreign interference here as well. So this reaction from the Wall Street Journal going after Tulsi Gabbard with a knife. You've got the Washington Post going after Tulsi Gabbard with a knife, quoting Mark Warner and how, she's, how did he put it? Legitimizing conspiracy theorists and that this is, politically motivated. You've got the Washington Post with that. And then you've got the New York Times here setting up the defense already for people who are potentially going to be criminally charged in a fraudulent, executing a fraudulent 2020 election. Like, the reaction here makes me think that the 2020 election was stolen. In fact, not even think, it makes me truly believe that it was stolen, because you wouldn't be reacting this way. The deep state wouldn't be reacting this way if it wasn't. All right. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Good morning. Chat, subscribe to the channel. I do want to talk about Illinois today. Staying on this topic of voting. This story comes out of Illinois because, of course, it does. Why are politicians, throw it in the comment section what you think about this. Why are politicians so freaking obsessed with getting inside of your kids' classroom? Not to teach them math, not to teach them reading or writing, not to make sure that they know how to complete a coherent sentence by college. Yes, I went to college with a gal. I asked her if she grew up in public school and went through the public schooling system, and she said yes. She didn't know how to read or write. She was a sophomore in journalism school in college at ISU. Okay, couldn't create a coherent sentence. And at one point, I just had to look at her and I had to ask her, "Do you know how to read?" And she said, "Not great." What? Okay. So why are politicians so hell-bent on getting inside your kids' classroom to do anything but teach them the basics? they want to get in there now. The Illinois politicians want to get in there now and get your kids registered to vote. So the Illinois Democrats are pushing House Bill 4339. And I love it. They named it after an activist, right? Nothing says impartial or nonpartisan like naming this bill the Jesse Jackson Sr. Young Voter Empowerment Law. Okay, Jesse Jackson Sr., an activist, okay, like civil rights activist, okay, and it's like, hold on, folks, you're naming this bill after an activist, like, and then you're saying that, oh, we're not going to push the kids into a certain direction or to vote for a certain person or vote for certain things. We're not going to do that. Okay, but you like named the bill after an activist. Okay, but what this bill would do would require public high schools to offer voter registration for students before graduation. Okay, so this would be like seniors. Okay, some seniors. I wasn't even old enough to vote by the time I graduated. I have a later birthday, so I was like 18, like right when I graduated. Shortly after graduating, I turned 18. So this would apply to some high school students, some high school seniors before graduation. And the sponsor of the bills, they pinky swear that this is nonpartisan and student-centered and voluntary, and we're not going to try to sway your kids into voting for certain people or voting for certain issues or ballot initiatives, okay? But you already know, when they pinky promise, oh, this is nonpartisan. This is civic engagement. You already know what that BS means. Okay, so let's break it down. House Bill 4339 would mandate Illinois public high schools to provide voter registration opportunities to eligible students. Supporters say that this is about civic engagement and honoring the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Look, if you're passing bills honoring the legacy of people, like, you have way too much time on your hands, okay? We've got more important things to touch on than civic engagement with high schoolers, okay? And honoring the legacy of activists, okay? I feel like Illinois should probably address, the fact that it's possible for a guy to be arrested 70 times, be still out of jail, and be able to set a woman on fire. Okay, so think we should probably focus on that stuff before we start, worrying about high school students being registered to vote. And look, folks, it's up to you if you want to register to vote. It's up to you if you want to vote or not. Okay, this is not like a duty. And I freaking hate when people are like, oh, it's your civic duty, like jury duty. No, it's not. It's up to me. And if I don't want to vote, if I don't want to register to vote, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with certain people not registering to vote. In fact, if they don't make it a priority and if they have to have it shoved down their throats, most likely we don't want those people voting anyway. Okay. Sorry, but if you have to try to get them automatically registered to vote at the DMV, if you ask them at 16, they still say no, you ask them again in the classroom, and then you ask them again and ask them again. Like, at some point, some people just don't want to vote, and that's okay. Not everybody should. Okay, if you are not making informed decisions and you are not an informed voter, I don't think you should be voting. I don't think you should register to vote if you're not an informed voter. Okay, so it just like it's my right to vote, it's my right not to vote. Okay. But anyway, so they are telling kids to register to vote, and they swear that they're not going to tell kids who to vote for or what to vote for. Okay, they're just making sure the kids are registered. So State Representative Kim DeBucklet, Democrat Chicago, took to social media, said, "We're not telling students who to vote for or what to vote for. We're just asking them to register to vote. We're just asking them." Yeah, mandatory voting. They've whispered that here in the state of Illinois, which there's only a few countries that practice mandatory voting and subject their people to penalties if they don't vote. So I don't know how democracy that is when you like force people to vote. Okay, that's like some Xi Jinping crap right there. But Australia does it, and like a few other countries, and Illinois is actually looking at forcing its citizenry to vote and treating it like jury duty, subject to like some penalty possibly down the road. They say, oh no, not right now. We'll treat it like mandatory voting. There's a bill out there that says like we want to implement mandatory voting, but we won't penalize people for not voting. Okay, but like, will you? Like, what's the point of making it mandatory if there's no penalties? Anyway, the Democrats are so anti-democracy, it's not even funny. Okay, not registering to vote, not voting, that's a part of it. Okay, they're trying to shove this down the throats of our children, and they're not ready for it because they're low information voters. But that's who they prey on, because that's their base. They need the low information voters because their ideas suck and their candidates suck. Okay, so look, obvious issue. Schools are overwhelmed. Okay, ask any administrator or teacher. Ask the parent who's been trying to get a meeting with their teacher, or get an IEP, an individual education plan meeting scheduled. Ask any parent. Like, the schools are stretched thin complying with all of these state mandates coming out of Springfield, and yet this is yet another required task that the schools would have to do that has nothing to do with academics. They will have to roll out a voter registration drive at their schools, and that takes staff, that takes infrastructure, like. And to be frank with you, like, they're already stretched thin, okay, our schools, with complying with mandates from Springfield, okay? Anyway, Marsha McClary quoted Center Square, chair of Moms for Liberty, Lake County. She put it perfectly. She goes, in general, this is just another thing schools are being asked to do. Administrators are telling you they're overwhelmed. We need to really focus on academics here. And, this is the same state where kids can't read at grade level. Math scores are in free fall. They're terrible. There's behavioral issues that are just out of control. But the lawmakers, they think that, voter registration is a priority. And this tells you everything you need to know. And here's the part that they also don't talk about. Just recently, it was in January of 2024, January 1st, 2024, they signed this into law where 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, they can pre-register to vote. Okay. Younger and younger. I think the voting age should be older and older and older. We want informed voters. Okay. I don't know about you, but I was crazy when I was 18. Didn't understand a lick of politics at 18. Didn't really get into it until mid-20s. All for raising the voting age to 25, by the way, when your brain fully develops. But 16 and 17-year-olds, they can pre-register to vote at the DMV. You go to the DMV, the students are asked when they get their driver's license or a state-issued ID if they want to pre-register. So when they turn 18, they'll already be registered to vote. And you can say yes or no. So they already have the infrastructure here where they're asking high school students through the Secretary of State, not your local school district. They already have the infrastructure here to register students, high school students, because most kids drive. Okay. So it's already kind of taken care of. This is duplicative, and you're relying on your local school district to implement some sort of infrastructure to carry this mandate out. So McClary explained it like this. Marsha McClary with Moms for Liberty. She said, the interaction at the DMV works just fine. You can ask, the student can say yes or no, and that's it. Schools aren't equipped with that same infrastructure. They have the Secretary of State infrastructure already in place. That wouldn't cost taxpayers money. This is going to cost you even more money as a taxpayer to implement an infrastructure in these local school districts to register kids to vote. Okay, now here's where it gets crazy. If they can't implement the infrastructure, which they won't be able to because they can't cover their pensions, they can't, they're poorly managing their money. Okay, these school districts already, okay, by hiring DEI administrators and, I don't know, gay LGBTQ advisors or whatever, 70 guidance counselors. I don't know what the hell they're doing with their monies, but they're not managing it well because, as we know, most of local school districts continuously ask for tax increases every year via referendum. A lot of it probably has to do with the exorbitant pensions. We're paying retired superintendents like to the tunes of $200,000 a year. That's insane in the form of pension. And it's just not sustainable. But most likely what they're going to do, these schools, they're going to outsource the infrastructure to a third-party organization. Okay. And I want to go back to the DMV thing. If voter registration is already happening, by the way, the obvious question is, why do the schools have to do it again? Okay. Why do this at the school rather than just keep it at the DMV? Okay. There's already infrastructure in place there. It doesn't cost taxpayers anything. Or, well, I mean, it does, but not additional. Okay. The infrastructure is kind of already there and it's already in the law. This wouldn't be additional taxpayer money spent on a program to build like infrastructure to sign up students to register to vote. Okay. And I'll tell you what this is really all about. It's about control. That's what it is. When I was a kid, my mom and dad, we had a conversation, about voting. And I got to talk with my mom and dad about it. And what this does, it rips mom and dad out of the equation. You're no longer having the conversation with your parents on how to register to vote. And the school steps in and tells you, oh, here's how you register to vote. Oh, by the way, this is who you should vote for. Like, come on now. Okay. We're politicizing our classrooms. This is about control. This is about taking control away from the parents and inserting the school into these kids' lives and inserting politics into the classroom. But the parents are really going to be concerned about these organizations that they're going to bring in for the infrastructure, okay? Because the administrators are going to say, well, we're kind of stretched then. We're going to outsource it to a third-party organization. And what third-party organization are they going to use? I'll tell you right now, it's probably going to be the League of Women Voters. And League of Women Voters, they register people to vote, or they'll bring in, I don't know, All In Democracy Challenge, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama initiative. They'll bring these in and they're described as nonpartisan, but let's be honest, we're not stupid. Okay. Nonpartisan typically means, okay, publicly we act neutral. Privately, we have a certain ideology and we are always reliably left. Okay. So these organizations are going to be brought in. They're going to register the kids to vote. And these organizations are left leaning. Okay, so McClary, she raises a question that every parent should be asking. If the schools don't have a mechanism in place, a third party will probably be brought in. Who's going to get a say in what third parties are brought in? And are these groups truly nonpartisan? What happens to the students' information? So League of Women Voters, they're there, they're tabling, they're registering kids to vote. They're brought in to do the infrastructure. And then they get the kids' emails. And then every year they email students, and League of Women Voters winds up hosting, 6 Democrats at their latest function and inviting the students via their email addresses to come to this function where there's like 6 Democrat female candidates, okay, that sit around in a circle and drink wine and talk about how, they want to abort their babies. Okay. So like what happens to the students' information once these third party organizations get it? what happens to the email addresses, because you know that they're not just going to register the kids to vote. They're going to obtain their contact information and engage them in their activities. We know that these nonpartisan organizations don't have neutral activities going on, and the data, like who gets it, and how's it stored, who follows up, who emails your kid during election season, the League of Women Voters, and I'm just throwing out a hypothetical. We don't know what organizations are going to be brought in, but it could be a nonpartisan organization like the League of Women Voters. Who emails your kid, during election season. So, and before any of you say like, oh, this would never happen, like, let me remind you, the data has already been this has already happened. Universities, colleges, they have shared student data with partisan voter outreach groups. Okay. They'll do civic engagement things on campus, and you go register to vote. They take all of your information, including your phone number, and send it to voter outreach groups, sometimes without the students' consent. Okay, so for example, in Illinois, we have a case, GOP Senate candidate, former state Senate candidate, Desi Anderson. She filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education, alleging that Illinois State University violated federal privacy laws by sharing student data with election-related organizations. Partisan election related organizations, the All In Democracy Challenge, which has ties to Barack Obama's voter engagement or voter outreach groups. Okay, group. Okay, so the universities can't be trusted with the student data. Why should the K through 12 schools be trusted with the student data? Okay, and I want to talk about timing here. Okay, this is right before the midterms. There's a lot of sponsors on this bill, including the House Speaker. And my guess is that they want to push this through prior to the midterm elections, because of course they do. They prey on young voters. They prey on low information voters. Why? Because they're more emotional. They vote with their gut. They don't know. They're not super informed about politics. And they want to register them, get their information, share it with voter outreach groups. The voter outreach groups contact them and say, hey, have you thought about candidate so-and-so? Or we're inviting you to a candidate forum where we've only invited Democrats, right? So they're registering these kids inside a government institution. And they're registering them early. It makes turnout easy for Democrats because, young voters lean left. Because they can't win just on their platforms alone. The Democrats, you see, it's all about electoral strategy. It's all about preying on low information voters. And we see it. Like, you're not fooling anyone, okay? No one's against voting. No one's against civic engagement, except maybe for me. Maybe me, civic engagement. Like, I think that we've got too much civic engagement right now. It's getting to a point where this is no longer democracy or democratic process. We are forcing people to vote, and we are forcing people to register to vote. And I don't want to live in a country where I'm forced to go vote. Because guess what? That's like Banana Republic type situation, Xi Jinping type situation. I'm not into that. That is anti-democracy, for forcing people to go to the ballot box. Okay. Not voting for someone is a way to express your voice. And participate in this thing called the democratic process in our constitutional representative republic. Okay. A constitutional republic. So these schools exist to educate, period. They shouldn't be outreach centers, voter outreach centers. That's not what our taxpayer dollars are for. Our taxpayer dollars are for these schools to teach the kids to write a coherent sentence. And until you can do that, stop trying to reinvent the wheel and reinvent yourselves as voter outreach centers. It's BS. All right. I want to get to this black ice agent, and then I'm going to wrap up the show. Going a little bit longer today, but that's okay. Black ice agent, he was berated by a group of radical leftists. They called him a house N-word. I'm not going to say the word because not that I'm giving it too much power, but I'll get kicked off of YouTube. Okay, so I want to make sure that I continue streaming, but they called him a house N-word, okay, for observing that not everything appears to be what it seems. Okay, so this man approaches him, and he's, I'd imagine, dressed like a woman. He has long hair, and he noticed that this woman had a very manly voice, and straight up just asked this woman if he was a man or not. And his curiosity provoked him into asking this man if he was a man, if this they them if they were a man. Take a look. Here we go.
What is, like, we should rip people apart from their families?
Are you a man?
Wow, is that a question?
Wow.
Okay. How do you feel about ripping people from their families? Does that feel good?
Fucking house nigga, isn't there? Sir, I need to move. Fucking house nigga, where's you for the fucking KKK?
What the fuck's wrong with you people? Why are you calling a woman a man?
Sir,
I mean, what kind of a guy does that?
fucking house nigga, bitch.
Go look for your fucking slave.
Oh boy, man, liberals are so racist. All he did was ask, "Are you a man?" And that's all he asked. He was confused, genuinely, I think. And you know, when you're interacting with people, especially in a hostile situation, I say this all of the time. You know, transphobia, yeah, kind of. Are you a transphobe, Cat? Well, when you look at the statistics here, they commit suicide, okay, far more than any other population. This is a shocking statistic. During Auschwitz, right, Holocaust, they're headed into the gas chambers. You'd have Jewish people killing themselves because they didn't want to go in such a inhumane way. And the suicide rate was pretty high, but not higher than the current suicide rate amongst the trans community. Violence, suicide is violence, and you should fear violence. Okay, not to mention, you know, a lot of these trans people in the community, and they'll tell you this, like the trans advocates will tell you that they participate in things like prostitution, drug use. They're more susceptible to dealing drugs, and they're often victims of homicide, not because they're trans, but because they are in this world of depravity. They're just happen to be in that world of depravity of prostitution, drug dealing, pimping, and it's quite sad. So yes, I am sort of scared of those who identify as transgender, because they might hurt themselves in front of me, or they might hurt me, because they have violent tendencies and are traditionally found in this world of depravity and criminality. Okay, so that's just facts and statistics. If you look at homicides, victims of homicide, trans victims of homicide, pretty much all of them died by like a drug use, prostitution, or suicide, right? So by homicide, and then they'll die via suicide. This is a very violent world that they live in. So yes, statistic like being scared of spiders is less rational. Okay, spiders don't kill people, or spiders don't kill them. Like hang themselves, or are violent towards themselves, and mutilate their bodies. Like being scared of a little spider is less rational than being scared of somebody who's trans. Just statistically, looking at the statistics. Okay. Not to mention a lot of them in recent years have been shooters, school shooters. Look at Nashville, Audrey Hill. I could go on. There's a few more high profile mass shootings in schools. And Charlie Kirk, the assassination there, right? Had a trans relationship. Anyway, all this officer did, and I really think, I truly believe that this individual asked if he was a man, because you want to know when you're in a hostile situation like that, if you're dealing with a man or woman. Okay. Like I bet he'd be curious. Okay. Am I going to have to use force on you like you're a man, or am I going to have to use force on you like you're a woman? And that's just how we're wired. We need to know if we're interacting with men or women. And it's really just a biological safety thing. So I genuinely think that this officer asked not to be snotty or rude, but because he genuinely wanted to know if he was dealing with a man or a woman in a hostile situation. Okay, so they were like berating him because he was an ICE agent, and they said all kinds of fake, loaded, untruthful statements, like he was tearing families apart. I don't understand why the left doesn't get this. You can deport families together. Okay. And that has been the policy of Donald Trump 2.0, that they're going to get deported together, and that they're actually going to be detained in family centers. Now, that's a little bit different than what Trump 1.0 was all about. They were detaining children. Remember, the children in cages. Well, who built the cages? They were Barack Obama. You can't house children with adults. Okay, so they were housing them in different detention facilities, upon deportation, but they were still deporting them with their families. So I don't get why the left throws that out there. But they were berating him with that. And he just says, like, are you a man or a woman? I need to know. And I think it was genuine curiosity. And, hey, am I going to have to, like, punch this guy repeatedly because he's a man? Or am I going to, just slightly take down this woman? I don't know who I'm interacting with here. Okay. Nonetheless, the trans little army here, they thought it would be best to respond to his question by calling him the N-word. Last time I checked, white people were not allowed to use that word, and use that slur directed towards a group of people of a particular skin color, because one would say that's a racist. Okay, last time I checked. But don't you love it? Don't you love how liberals are extremely racist? Don't you love how everyone refused to answer the question, by the way, if this guy was a man or not? And I think the refusal of answering the question was the answer itself. Like, of course, this is a guy, right? Of course, this individual is a man. Otherwise, if he was anything other than that, a woman, actually, he would have answered, no, I'm a woman. But we all know that this guy's an actual man. He knows that deep down, because there's this little thing called biological truth. And he didn't, say, oh, no, I'm a woman. And this video, that I just played for you, this is why you have this saying: conservatives hate it when you lie. Liberals hate it when you tell the truth. So, and that's because the truth hurts. And no one knows that more than a trans individual who's more than likely, very, very, very likely, in fact, a man. The truth hurts. He didn't want to admit the truth that, yes, I am a man. and he didn't say anything at all because he knows the truth, but he won't admit the truth, which is why he stayed silent and didn't say, "Oh, I'm a woman." Okay, so I think this ICE officer did a great job handling the situation. Well done, don't you think? One more time, I'll play it just in case you're just joining.
Energy. Like we should rip people apart from their families.
Are you a man?
Wow.
Wow, is that a question?
Wow.
Okay. How do you feel about ripping people from their families? Does that feel good?
Fucking house nigga, isn't there? Sir, I need to move. Fucking house nigga working for the fucking KKK.
What the fuck's wrong with you people? Why are you calling a woman a man? I mean, what kind of a guy does that?
Fucking house nigga, bitch.
Go look for your fucking slave.
A house N-word bitch is what he said. Wow. Yeah, liberals are racist. Can't convince me otherwise. But this guy handled the situation very, very well. Got into his car, left the scene. He goes, "What the hell's wrong with you people?" Like, you called me a house N-word. Like, what's wrong with you people? And I genuinely don't think he was trying to be, I don't know, like maybe he was trying to be, I don't know.
Like we should rip people apart from their families.
Are you a man?
I think that he was just being genuinely curious about this person being a man or a woman. I don't even think he heard the question. I think he was really trying to understand who he was dealing with. This is a hostile situation. You got whistles blowing. We know what the whistles mean. ICE agents attack. That's what they're trained to do in their ICE watch groups. But you've got this ICE agent like really genuinely trying to figure out who he's interacting with. Why? Because like he's in a physical situation here and he's trying to figure out who he's dealing with. And there's nothing wrong with that. All right. And like, what's so bad about asking if somebody's a man? Isn't it like what you're supposed to do with transgender people? Like, hey, what are your pronouns? Like, are you a man? Are you a woman? I'm asking. Like, there was definitely a tone of like inflection. Like, there was some inflection in his voice where he was like asking. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to be back tomorrow morning. I think he handled the situation rather well, don't you think? Subscribe. We will be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. Love you so much. Catch you later.